good long time ago on eBay, I remember purchasing this, which is a very generic TFT digital photo frame. These were sort of like not terribly expensive, I seem to recall at the time, and they were available certainly in good quantity. There was plenty of them available on eBay, and obviously, as you can see, no particular manufacturer, very generic, just stick in your average SD card. And beautiful pictures will be yours on the doubtless high quality display included. Now, as it turns out, as with probably with quite a lot of purchases of things like this, you buy them and they get absolutely no use whatsoever. They sit in the cupboard and were a good idea at the time, but never actually really see serious use. Aside from anything else, it's quite an enormous waste of power just to have sort of like something plugged in and using electricity all the time just to show you photographs. And so the cupboard was where it stayed. But it seemed like a reasonable idea eventually to do some dehoardering, if there is such a word as that. So I thought, okay, don't use this anymore, let's stick it on eBay. And which I did, and someone paid about £11 for it. But in the spirit of obviously making sure that I don't send out things that don't work, I did actually take the precaution of plugging it in again before I was just about to send it off to the buyer. And of course it made an interesting little plink sound. I think that is the technical term. It's something between a pop and a minor explosion. But there was a small flash, a tiny plink, and the device did not work. And I thought, okay, maybe the power supply's gone. So I had a look around, found an equivalent power supply, plugged it in, photo frame, not having it basically. So obviously, and checked the output of the PSU with a multimeter, and no power there. So obviously, whatever happened failed in a way which took them both down. So I thought, okay, well, this sat around for a while. I'm thinking like, well, I should just chuck it out because obviously it's useless. There's nothing that I can do with this. But then I thought, well, maybe one day I can take it apart, find out, what went wrong with it, and or just see what's inside, purely out of interest and for no reason other than that. As you can see, it comes with the highest quality user manuals, and all good. But let's take a look and see what's inside. Have a nice plastic wall mount, which is useful. So the idea being that basically you can mount it either in that orientation or that orientation. There is a sort of like a hook on the back. Theoretically, this is obviously not very big, but you could use these as sort of like static displays, or they could cycle through a series of images, or anything that you decided to put on the SD card. But I think this is what caused the problem. This is the suitable power supply. Obviously, as you can see, it has been QC passed. We wouldn't want to sully our time with anything that was not fully licensed and bonded by the state. But as you can see, it's Shenzhen Fujia Appliance Limited, apparently. So, unfortunately, this probably had amount of use, literally, which you could count in terms of minutes before, over the years, of course. But say in the end, it went plink, the light went out, and no power comes out of this. And obviously, this, which it was connected to, no longer works with any other source of power either. So say it's taken them both down. So curiosity got the better of me. I think I wonder what's inside this thing. Have a look, shall we? Now, I'm assuming that this might be reasonably easy to crack open. I could be wrong in that, but I feel a certain amount of give in the so there's definitely something going on there, but then again, I say that, and I'm thinking, all a man needs is a screwdriver and he can open anything, but there's no screw holes on this, and it doesn't look like it's actually going to really yield. As you can see, all I've managed to do is basically make a nice series of indentations along the plastic, so maybe this is not going to go very far. Let's see. There we go. If I squeeze it around enough, it it should come off, hopefully. Maybe. Strange odour coming out of the thing. Oh, there we go, it's more like it. Yes. And there we are. Well, I'm not too expert in the assembly of power supplies, but you know, it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look like there's anything obviously wrong in there. Nice, big old capacitor there. Some nice sticky tape. The prestigious, what is that? JY brand. Can't say I've ever heard of those. No obvious sign of anything that's broken or fused or destroyed, I don't think. It's so, on the whole, fairly uncontroversial. Okay, so mains input that comes in there, that's fine. Something which I believe to be a regulator, some kind of heatsink. What I do notice is that whatever the sort of the plastic wrapping around this part of the, presumably one of the transformers, is peeled off a little, but on the face of it, nothing necessarily terribly obvious wrong with it. Although obviously we do know that it doesn't work, and we do know that it was responsible for the demise of the photo frame. So, but in general, the build quality actually doesn't look too bad. I wonder if it'll be, that looks like some kind of fuse, possibly. What does it say? Can I read that? PCB, nothing obvious. Generally speaking, as I say, I'm not an expert in these kind of things, not even slightly, but it doesn't look too bad. It certainly doesn't look like anything like the pretty horrendous board layouts that you see sometimes on blogs and teardowns of sort of like the cheaper power supplies. So all in all, I think that's not too bad, not too interesting, but also at the same time, you know, not too useful. There's nothing we can do with that, so that's destined for the scrap bin. Which I suppose means the next question is, I wonder what's inside this, and if we can get it open. Now, I can see that it's got Phillips screws, so I think I may have a screwdriver that will be able to open that for us, so one moment please. Okay, let's see what we can do. And one screw which for some reason does not seem to wish to come out. Okay, well that's a nuisance, but we're not trying to keep this intact, so perhaps we can break that off, which is a terribly wasteful means of doing it. But let's see. That screw there doesn't seem to wish to yield. That's not going to move, so I'll have to break that one, I'm afraid. See if I can do it gently without causing a problem. Okay, well we can see how it's assembled anyway. So, some kind of TFT matrix. There we go. That's kind of a sneaky way of getting it open. So you have the plastic here. It's like a linking rings game, isn't it? You can just take it away any way you want to. So there we go. We can break that off, we don't need it. So what do we have? Well, screen, obviously. Some kind of flat flex connector. Actually quite a nice little screen. I wonder if that's actually could be any use at all. But see what we've got there. That's doesn't seem to be connected very significantly, so that'll probably come out. Yes, it does. It's just clipped in on the plastic. It's not complicated. I can feel a couple of sticky back plastic connectors there, and there we go. So we've got high voltage caution, cold cathode fluorescent lamp in LCD panel, contains mercury apparently. We have a flat flex connector onto the motherboard, some nice sticky sort of a double-sided goo. I take that to be the power connector. I assume if I pull that gently that will come out. Yes, it does. And that seems to be some kind of earth, possibly. Let's see, that connector comes out. So I just gently, yep, small amount of gentle pressure brings that off. So unscrew that. And what else do we have? Well, the power supply input is just about there, so we can see that comes in. This I take, because of the transformer on it, to be some kind of power board. Again, a nice little connector on there, and quite a lot of screws in this actually, more than I was expecting. But, well, when I say quite a lot of screws, it's, more perhaps than the minimum. So not a great deal going on there. Winky little capacitor there. Yes. 100 microfarad capacitor. Not very complicated, these things really, I suppose. Again, nicely screwed in. Selection of power switches. And everything very nicely connectors onto the switch panel, and also onto the board there, as you can see. So we have here nothing. Nothing terribly complicated or unusual. Nice switch action there. And obviously over on the board over here we have, that would be the SD card slot, I suppose is expected, and what seems to be, what I'm presuming is an FPGA possibly. Zoran ZR36966 ELCG, and also RAM of some kind possibly. What is that? And there we go. Apart from, so we take out one of the screws. So if we take that out, I should get the board free. Alright, there's a couple of pieces there. That's the third one. And so, something else on the back. In general. And again, no obvious signs of anything wrong. I mean, it could easily be, it could be any of these little passives could have blown or something like that. Admittedly, I'm not quite the whiz with a scope and a multimeter, or a multimeter, as many of the people you'll see on YouTube are, so this is definitely not going to be a repair video. It's basically just a, I wonder what's inside that thing now that it doesn't work, now that it's broken and safe to take apart. So yes, nice big Zoran chip, and as we can see, obviously QC passed, we would accept nothing less than that. And we also have an Hynix, which I suppose, again, possibly RAM, don't know. Looks a bit like that kind of thing, doesn't it? And, well, were I heavily into, like, making things and reusing things, this seems like actually quite a nice, quite a solid part, although obviously for all I know it could be this that actually broke. It might be that this is the critical component which has failed, causing everything else not to work properly. But, in theoretically, I imagine you could probably reuse one of these things in another project. So yes. Very interesting. That is what is inside an average 7-inch photo frame, or at least a photo frame of the vintage that we're talking about here, which is obviously many years old. But that's what's inside. Can't fix it. Nothing more to do but to send the pieces for, to send the cardboard for recycling, and the other pieces, well, to be disposed of in what I am sure is a WEEE compliant fashion. So, yeah. Mildly interesting. Thanks for watching.